Hello Oscar, Grandpa here, and this little chap, Moosey, and do you think Oscar's okay, Moosey? Yep, Moosey's happy, and Moosey's very happy, aren't you, Moosey? Yep, I'm very happy because Oscar, we will be seeing you in 3 days' time on Wednesday. You'll be travelling all the way to come and see Granny and Grandpa. So that's going to be absolutely lovely, and we'll look forward to seeing you. So, lots of love from me and from Moosey and from Granny, and we thought we would just read you a little bit more from the Playful Panda. It's a lovely story, isn't it? I think we could read that time and time and time again. Right. And by the way, it's very nice weather here at the moment, lots of sun, as you can see, shining on Moosey. And poor Moosey's a bit hot. And we'll put him this side. And so you'll be able to go to the beach and enjoy splashing in the sea. So I hope you're looking forward to that. And Annabelle too. That'll be lovely. So chapter 4, A Lucky Escape. Zoe looked quickly at Great Uncle Horace. She had never spoken to an animal in front of another person before, but she'd been so excited about the pandas. She'd forgotten Great Uncle Horace was there. She thought desperately, trying not to panic. What could she say to explain? Maybe she could pretend she'd muddled up her words. But Great Uncle Horace didn't seem to have heard her. There was a funny smile on his face, but he was still watching the cubs look round their new home. Zoe let out a deep, shaky breath. That was a lucky escape, she thought. I need to be more careful. Gosh, Zoe, you look very serious, cried a voice from behind her. Cheer up, sweetheart. This is the best day we've had at Rescue Zoo in ages. I can't believe we've got panda twins. It was Stephanie, Sue Lynn's old keeper, her freckled face pink from rushing along the path. Her chestnut brown hair was tied up in a bun, and she was wearing the blue Rescue Zoo uniform with a gold and hot air balloon sewn on the pocket. She grinned in delight, crouching down to stroke the smaller cub's soft fur. Aren't they gorgeous? I don't think I've ever seen such small pandas before. Will, Jess and Frankie all rushed down the path together. Then Lucy arrived with some of the other zookeepers, looking very out of breath. The zoo visitors must be wondering what's going on, she laughed, hugging Great Uncle Horace. The animals are making such a lot of noise, and all the zoo staff are dashing along the path, as if they're running a race. This is impossible, sputtered a voice from behind them. 2 new pandas? That's twice the money, and twice the mess. Guess who that is, Oscar? Zoe turned, her heart sinking. Mr. Pinch, the zoo manager, was standing by the gate. There he is. There's Mr. Pinch standing by the gate, looking very cross. His skinny arms were folded tightly. His uniform was crisply ironed and his shoes perfectly polished, but his thin face was as sour as vinegar. Only horrid Mr. Pinch could be grumpy about such gorgeous creatures arriving at the zoo, thought Zoe. Ah, Mr. Pinch, a pleasure as always, Great Uncle Horace called, his eyes twinkling. I see you've come to meet our new arrivals. Mr. Higgins, delighted to have you back, of course, Mr. Pinch added quickly, his cheeks flushing pink. But perhaps we should discuss this before we do anything hasty. I really do not see how the pandas can stay here. 1 cub will be very expensive. But 2? Yes, 2, Great Uncle Horace interrupted cheerfully. 2 pandas who both need a home. Remember, the Rescue Zoo never turns an animal away, no matter what. Mr. Pinch went the colour of a ripe tomato. So what's the colour of a ripe tomato, do you think, Oscar? Yeah, that's right, it's red. Well, no, he snapped, but the cost. Well, think of something, Great Uncle Horace told him, walking over to the flustered zoo manager and patting his shoulder. Let's go to my office for a chat. I know you must have some excellent ideas up your sleeve. Besides, it's time I had a cup of tea and a custard cream cookie. Whoa. Come along, Kiki. See you later, everyone. He marched away down the path with Kiki soaring above him. Mr. Pinch shot the pandas a final cross look and then followed, grumbling under his breath. Stephanie jumped to her feet. Right, everyone, let's get this enclosure fixed up for the cubs. The zookeepers set to work. Frankie fetched some fresh wood chippings for the ground, while Jess found a pile of warm, fleecy blankets for the cubs to sleep on. Everyone else swept away the piles of autumn leaves and cut the sprawling ivy off the wooden platforms. Meanwhile, Zoe's mum checked the cubs to make sure they were both healthy. As Zoe held each cub carefully in her lap, Lucy used the stethoscope around her neck to listen to their heartbeats. There, look, there's Lucy with the stethoscope. See them plugged into her ears, and she's listening to the baby panda's heart, isn't she, with that? Wow. Then she opened the special vet bag Lucy always carried and shone a small torch into their eyes and ears. They're both perfect, she smiled. She told Zoe, smiling. This one here is a little bigger than her sister, but that happens quite often when two babies are born at the same time. Soon there was only one job left. We need to mend the wooden fence around the enclosure, said Stephanie. Some of the wood has rotted away and the bamboo has grown so much that it's pushed holes right through it. Will and Jess fetched some new pieces of wood and some nails from the zoo storehouse and used them to patch up the holes in the fence. Finally, all the work was done and the twins' enclosure looked as good as new. Thanks for your help, everyone, called Stephanie as the keepers left in small groups, chatting about the adorable cubs. Lucy gave Zoe a kiss before heading back to the zoo hospital. I've got to check on a poorly raccoon and give some medicine to an aardvark with a snout. Aardvarks have long snouts, don't they, Oscar? Lucy said. I expect you and Meat will be here all day. Just be home in time for tea. As Lucy set off down the path, Stephanie grinned at Zoe. I think it's lunchtime for hungry panda cub, she announced. I'll fetch some milk. Will you watch them until I'm back? Of course, said Zoe quickly. She caught Meep's eye and the little lemur chirped excitedly. Being alone with the cubs meant she'd be able to talk to them with no one else around this time. As soon as Stephanie left the enclosure, Zoe knelt down. The bigger cub was playing happily with a piece of twig, while her sister was quietly watching a worm wriggle along the ground. Wriggly, wriggly worm, eh, Oscar? Do you like picking up worms? I'm not too sure about that. Hello, Zoe said softly. I'm Zoe and this is my best friend Meep. What are your names? The bigger cub looked up and squeaked in surprise. Zoe giggled. Yes, that's right. I can talk to animals. You weren't imagining it. I was supposed to do it before, though. I forgot my great-uncle was there. The cub squeaked again, eagerly. Chi-Chi, Zoe said, nodding. That's such a pretty name. What about you, little one? The smaller cub blinked at her, then squealed shyly. May-May, repeated Zoe, smiling gently at her. We're so pleased you've come to the rescue zoo. We're going to look after you here. I promise. Meek chattered a warning as Stephanie came back into the enclosure. Zoe, do you want to feed one of the cubs? She asked, holding up 2 bottles of warm milk. I know you're an expert. Zoe grinned happily. Yes, please, she said, taking a bottle from Stephanie. She loved feeding baby animals. Carefully she picked up May-May and held the little panda against her chest. With a tiny squeak, May-May cuddled up against Zoe. Her fur was so soft and fluffy, and she felt very warm. Zoe offered her the bottle. May-May started drinking the milk happily. There we are. There's May-May having her bottle of milk. Isn't that so sweet? Stephanie smiled as she fed Chi-Chi. We're so lucky to have them here, you know, she told Zoe. Pandas are some of the most endangered animals in the world. There are fewer than 2,000 living in the wild now. Zoe frowned. She knew that sounded like a big number, but it was actually very low. There were almost 1,000 people in her school, and that was the same as half of all the pandas living wild in the whole wide world. Why aren't there more? She asked. There are lots of reasons, Stephanie explained. Poachers hunt pandas because they can sell their fur for lots of money. Pandas need to eat so much bamboo that it's really hard for them to find homes with enough plants growing nearby. Plus, pandas don't have babies very often, and twins are especially unusual. Chi-Chi finished her milk and gave a little hiccup. Can you do a hiccup? No, don't do that, Oscar. You might get it for real. Stephanie laughed. They certainly enjoyed that, she said, tickling the cub's fluffy tummy. I've thought of some names, Stephanie, said Zoe. What about Chi-Chi for that cub and Mei-Mei for this one? Those are perfect, Stephanie exclaimed. In Chinese, Mei-Mei means little sister. How did you know that? Zoe thought quickly. I learnt it at school, she explained, hoping she wasn't blushing. Zoe didn't like making up stories, but sometimes it was the only way to cover up her secret. She couldn't tell Stephanie that the baby pandas had told her their names. When Mei-Mei had finished her bottle, Zoe and Stephanie put both pandas down. Straight away, Chi-Chi was ready to explore. She scampered over to the nearest wooden platform and clambered up the ramp with a little help from Stephanie. At the top, she squeaked happily, excited to see her new home from high up. Then she padded back down the ramp and dashed over to the waterfall. You're going to be a little handful, Chi-Chi, I can tell already. Stephanie laughed, chasing after her. Zoe glanced down curiously at Mei-Mei, who had crept up onto her lap. The smaller panda watched her sister quietly, but didn't seem to want to join in. Don't you want to explore, Mei-Mei? Zoe whispered, but the cub shook her head. A moment later, Chi-Chi came charging back through the enclosure and nudged her little sister with her front paws, squeaking bossily. Mei-Mei cuddled closer to Zoe and whimpered. Stephanie scratched her head. It's funny that they're not playing together, she said, puzzled. They must have been cooped up together for too long. They just need a little bit of space, and they'll be rolling around together soon enough. And there's little Mei-Mei cuddling up to Zoe. Well, Oscar, I'm going to stop reading. We'll learn a little bit more about what happened to Mei-Mei and Chi-Chi and how they get on together next time. And next time, I'll be reading to you here in our little house in East Coker, in England, in the United Kingdom. So we're really looking forward to seeing you and Annabelle and Daddy. And it will be lovely to see you. So just for the moment, it's looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday. So bye-bye from me. Lots of love. Bye-bye from Granny. It's Granny's birthday today. And it's bye-bye from Moosey and Auntie Anna, of course. So seeing you soon, very soon. Bye, Oscar.